Good morning, everybody. It's an honor for me to be here with you today to welcome you to the unceded territory of the Musqueam people and descendants of Musqueam ancestors, Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh, what is called the Shared Territories today and also known as the Greater Vancouver area. When we hear visitors coming into our territory, we used to gather and meet and greet our visitors as a community at the mouth of the river. And when we get ready to meet and greet our visitors, we used to dress in our best. That's why I'm in my traditional regalia today. To go along with these words of welcome, have a welcome song to welcome you also. And the words translate to welcome respected ones, welcome loved ones, to share the song Sychowski.
Hello, I'm Harry Bains, BC's Minister of Labour. I would like to thank the Coast Salish people on host territory I'm participating from today. Today, we reflect on the tragedy of lives lost or forever changed by workplace injury and illness. I offer my deepest condolences to those who have lost their loved ones and to those who continue to suffer from illness or injury caused by their work. I want all workers to return home healthy and safe at the end of the shift. Sadly, we are still seeing preventable accidents happen in workplaces. That people die at work is profoundly heartbreaking and it is unacceptable. A priority of mine is to make workplaces in this province as safe as they can be. We continue to work hard every day to make sure that's the case. I'm asking all workers and employers in BC to join me in promoting a culture of safety in every workplace. Together we can and must take action to make sure everyone is safe at work every day. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Naser, President and CEO at WorkSafeBC. Today, in BC and around the world, we acknowledge and pay our respects to those workers who have lost their lives to work-related injury or disease. Our hearts go out to their loved ones as well, who have been forever changed by their loss. We are thinking of you today. Sadly, last year in British Columbia, 151 workers lost their lives because of their work. This is an increase from the 140 work-related deaths in 2019. In the first few months of this year, we have lost several workers to traumatic injury in various industries across the province. We all know this must stop, but we cannot do it alone. At WorkSafeBC, we are committed to preventing those tragedies through education, consultation, and enforcement. We serve close to 250,000 employers in BC who each have the legal responsibility to provide a healthy and safe workplace for their workers. And we also serve the 2.5 million workers who have the right to a healthy and safe workplace, the right to proper training, and the right to refuse unsafe work. We are challenged today, more so than ever, with complex workplace issues like bullying and harassment, discrimination, fatigue, and mental health, the effects of which are often unseen. No matter what the industry or circumstance, employers must set up and maintain appropriate health and safety plans, and workers need to understand and follow those plans even as conditions change. We have seen the importance of this as we navigate the complexity of this current pandemic. Whether you're an employer, a worker, a union representative, or part of an industry association, we all share responsibility for keeping workplaces healthy and safe. So we all must make this our priority every single day of the year. By working together, we can make a difference in the lives of British Columbians. Thank you.
I'd like to begin by recognizing I'm on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. Today, for the second year running, we're not gathering to remember in person, but remotely. That's because of a disease that has taken a terrible toll. But that toll would have been dramatically greater if not for the working people who have sacrificed so much over the past year. And nobody more than those on the front lines who've been exposed to COVID-19. The BC Federation of Labour represents 500,000 workers through our affiliated unions. On their behalf, I would like to extend our heartfelt condolences to the family, the friends, and the co-workers of the 173 workers who were killed on the job last year or died because of work-related disease. We're here today because every worker deserves to come home safe every day, and because not enough do. We've made important progress. Stronger health and safety regulations to protect workers from injury, disease, and death. Presumptive coverage for COVID-19. Improvements to compensation for workers under Bill 23. But we have much more to do before we have a workers' compensation system that's truly worker-centered. A lot further to go before every workplace is a safe workplace. Far more progress to make before everyone who would place a worker's safety in jeopardy is held to account. On behalf of the 500,000 workers represented by our affiliated unions, I call on all of us to recommit to making that progress. Today we mourn for the dead, and every day we fight for the living.
Hello, my name is Greg Davignon. I'm the President and CEO of the Business Council of British Columbia. I'd like to thank the Minister of Labour, the BC Federation of Labour and their affiliates, as well as WorkSafeBC, that for 24 years has partnered with the Business Council of British Columbia to ensure we build a culture of safety in the workplace for all workers in our province. Specifically, the day of mourning is an important day for all British Columbians. It's a time that we can pause to reflect on workplace injuries and accidents, and more importantly, unnecessary deaths that have taken place in the workplace. It's also a time for us to think about what we can be doing individually and collectively, as employers, as employees, as labor, and as government, to ensure that all workers go home safely at the end of every day. Across our province over the last year, we've experienced the impacts of a global pandemic. We've witnessed it through illness, sadly death of loved ones, declining mental health among some in our population, as well as a slowing economy, reduced wages, and job loss. But one thing COVID-19 has heightened is the awareness that we have to look after one another, to work together to protect us and our safety and health. And in doing so, whether it's protection against a virus or risk of accident in the workplace, that collaboration is important for us to be successful in eliminating workplace injuries and death. The facts are that over the last decade, we've been successful in reducing the number of workplace accidents. But in 2020, that number was going in the wrong direction. One accident, let alone one death, is one too many. And we have to make a strong priority to ensure that we can improve workplace safety in the years to come. Through these important virtual ceremonies, we remember that each of the workers that we lost were so much more than co-workers. Family, friends, community leaders, important people in all of our lives making our province a better place. We pause to think about them, not just as individuals, but more importantly, what we can be doing to support a culture of safety that prevent even one injury or one death in the workplace going forward. And have the courage to stand up when you see an unsafe practice or an unsafe environment and make sure that that is corrected. On behalf of the Business Council, our staff, our board, and our 250 members that make up 25% of British Columbia's employment base, we recognize those that have been lost in the workplace in the last year, and more importantly, rededicate ourselves to working with all of you that we can avoid even one death and one injury in the future. Thank you.
I'm Stefan von Sychowski, President of the Vancouver and District Labour Council, recording on the traditional unceded territory of the Katzie and Kwantlen First Nations. We're happy to co-host this important event again this year. Together, we host this ceremony each year to underscore the importance of the participation of each stakeholder in ensuring safe and healthy workplaces in BC. It's so important that we take this opportunity each year to remember those we've lost and recommit ourselves to a vision of a world where every worker goes home safe at the end of their workday every time. Unfortunately, this was not the case for 151 workers who died in the past year as a result of workplace injuries and disease. In addition to this, we recognize those not included in this number and the many workers who face serious injuries as well. The truth is that one is too many. Making sure every worker goes home safe at the end of their shift takes everyone's commitment. Employers living up to their responsibilities, workers knowing their rights and exercising them, and WCB and government ensuring good, strong regulations that are well enforced. As we participate in today's ceremony, let's all commit to do our part and change the narrative around workplace deaths and injuries to end the normalization of preventable incidents. After all, today we mourn for the dead, but we recommit ourselves to fight for the living.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Avneet, and I would just like to start off by saying thank you for everyone for being here as we remember and honor those lives lost due to a workplace tragedy. Today, I would like to share my story in the hopes that it resonates and is kept in mind as we think about the significance of workers' lives. I am the daughter of two immigrant parents who moved here in the late 1990s to give their future families a better life. My parents were engaged, my mom came before my dad, she worked on a farm, and my dad soon joined her that year. Their life was bleak and they were paid $1 a day. They worked for 8 months that year without seeing much money. When my parents had had enough, they moved into a basement of their own. In time, my parents found work at a chicken slaughterhouse. My dad became a supervisor and my mom managed janitorial services. When my parents found out that I was on the way, they made a plan to send me to India to be in the care of their families, so that they could continue to work full-time and save money. In those years, they slept in shifts and did not get to see each other except on Sundays. When they had enough money saved, I was able to come back. My dad bought us a townhouse and they had 2 more kids. and even though they were working full-time, I had a great childhood. My parents had 2 more kids, and when my brother, the youngest, was 10 months old, my mom regained work as a farm worker under a contractor. Tragedy struck on March 7th, 2007, when my mom's work transportation collided with 2 semi-trucks and flipped on the Fraser Valley Highway close to Mission. My mom and 3 other women, all mothers, daughters, and some even grandmothers, lost their lives that day, and it left 14 impaired for life. As a 7-year-old child, I had no idea what had happened. It was not until I was 13 or 14 that I began to piece together all the bits of information to get a grasp of exactly why or how this had happened. And it was not until I was 17 I began to understand the nature of society and the role of the blue-collar worker that was heavily dismissed as being replaceable and unimportant work. The transportation of farm workers was cheap. It was an old van with no seat belts and a bench in the trunk space added for extra seating. That day, that van carried 21 workers. The driver of the van was a woman that held no license to be driving it in the first place, and she was on her phone at the time of the incident. After 2 appeals, the incident was dismissed as an accident, at no fault of the owner of the van or the contractor. Every year since 2007, on March 7th, we have held a candlelight for the workers that have lost their lives in Canada due to workplace safety regulations not being met or not being there in the first place. Every year since then, I have had to make a speech about what I have lost, what I have learned that year, and how we can all somehow collectively make a change. In all these years, by entering the workforce and learning the rates of living and having a family, I have realized that profit for a business can never account for the loss of a life. I began to read about mundane existence and the alienation of our labor that workers face. It makes me somewhat proud and yet so anxious and upset knowing that my mother was just trying to provide for us a better life when she died. What hurts the most is knowing that my parents placed making a living over having a life. I learned that for vulnerable groups like immigrants, hard work isn't a choice, and that the idea that capitalism proposes that with hard work the world is yours is just that, an idea that has been projected to workers forever, to keep them meaninglessly drowning themselves in alienated labor. Blue-collar and minimum wage workers begin every day with the promise of a new life, a better life with more materials and perhaps a bigger house. And each day they watch as they are further away from their goals as the moment they started. And just like that, they begin the next day and they keep trying. For years, I had that same work ethic, and I believe that inheriting my father's work ethic was a positive attribute. Though this may seem odd, I realized that my dad and I never had anything to relate to one another about or felt comfortable speaking about until I joined the workforce and got a full-time job. We could finally talk about what it meant to be alienated from our work, our product, our process, our co-workers, and even ourselves. My dad has never talked about the incident directly, and he never shows any emotion over it. Exactly 12 days after my mom's death, he went back to work and has never taken a day off or sick leave because he has been conditioned to believe that the only way to get ahead or be successful is by doing just that. The only way someone coming from nothing could get ahead on a minimum wage job is by working their entire life and scrounging to save what little they have. Even then, they must know how to invest their money or how to save it. And sadly, these things are not taught to us in schools, so many of us are doomed to live paycheck to paycheck. If there's anything I learned from my experience in this entire debacle, it is that firstly, my experience was not a unique one, as I have met many others with very similar stories. Secondly, I have come to understand that not all work is perceived the same in society, although it should be. And finally, if there's anything to take away from my situation, it's to understand that work should not become life. What truly matters is what you cannot gain from monetary or material gain, like family and good friends. The lesson comes from understanding that we will never find the end marker of success. There will always be something that we do not physically have that we are constantly being pushed to purchase to feel better or more fulfilled as individuals. So today and onwards, my dad and I have made it our life's mission to work with the BC Federation of Labour and WorkSafe to ensure that workers have more rights and ensure that budget cuts do not mean eradicating workplace safety. This is not only a day to pay reverence but also to collectively remember and renew our commitment to improving health and safety in the workplace to prevent further injury, illness, or death. Thank you everyone for your time.